Before I begin, I'd like to let you all know that I'm a character in Doctor Who now. A book called The Book of the Snowstorm has been released, a collection of short stories set in the Doctor Who universe, and one takes place on the planet of New Haganistan, ruled by the Lecture bitch who was an army of black mask-wearing worshippers. I even get an acknowledgement. I didn't write it, I didn't even know it was happening, until I was sent a message on Twitter as it was being released. But I encourage you all to go buy a copy. I was sent a digital copy, but I've ordered my own hard copy too. Hello and welcome to number 78 in the official list of crossovers you never thought you'd see in one of my videos. Right between me and Ryan Hollinger teaming up, and a cooking show based in Genesis 7, Doctor Who and the Franklin Expedition. Yes, Doctor Who did a Franklin Expedition story. Now, this is an audio, but not Big Finish. This is a DWAD, a Doctor Who audio drama. I'm just going to call them the DWAD. A very long-running series of fan productions from the USA. So long-running, they're maybe technically the longest-running type of Who. They've been putting out regular audios without a hiatus for 40 years. Over those 40 years, there have been 7 Doctors, and in 2005, the 5th DWAD Doctor, played by Kevin J. Flynn, met the Franklin Expedition. And we're in luck, because Flynn's Doctor is considered to be the best of them. He's always visually represented by a picture of Matt Frewer as Sherlock Holmes. Side note, but some mad bastard cast Matt Frewer as Sherlock Holmes. More than once.
A monograph on the distinction between the 120 types of tobacco ash is hardly going to read like one of your overly romantic accounts of my cases, Watson.
Romantic, Holmes?
You can't seem to help working in some heroic romanticism of some kind, which invariably produces much the same result as if you were to work a love story into the 5th proposition of Euclid.
Anyway, Flynn is a wonderful Doctor. Imagine a cuddlier upper-class Pertwee with a dash of Hartnell and you got him.
Now then, Mr. Little, I'm going to need to give Mr. Irving a shot of andrexolin to stabilize his condition.
What?
Andrexolin, a medicinal compound developed by the Belgians. It's not exactly something you can pick up from the corner chemist. It helps to halt the degradation of a patient's condition and may even revive him.
Oh.
He's waking up!
Good show, Doctor. Belgians, eh? Hard to believe they'd have anything we English don't. After all, Europe isn't as big as it used to be.
Actually, the Belgians I'm speaking of aren't exactly located in your neighborhood. They reside in the Pontan cluster.
Never heard of it.
You should try getting out more often. Now, hush. Well, Dr. Petty, it's safe to assume that his wounds, while terrible, were not severe enough to have been the cause of death.
Yes, Doctor, I'm afraid I have to concur.
Oh, I know I have an Antarean med scanner in here somewhere.
A what?
An Antarean... Oh, look! My Garfield bureau. I wondered where that had gotten to.
Who's Garfield?
An orange cat with a fondness for lasagna. Oh, never mind. Best not to think of pasta in circumstances like this. We'd better get on with the autopsy. Hold the bureau, will you?
Certainly. Doctor, this is incredible. When I hold the biro upside down, the yellow dog chases after the orange cat.
Yes, one of the wonders of 21st century Earth technology. Your future is full of such innovative inventions.
Mr. Heltman, at the end of the message write, and start tomorrow, the 26th, for Baxfish River.
The letter is a little dry. Could I write an amusing anecdote at the end?
No. Mr. Little, put the letter in the cairn and get some men to cover the opening.
Aye, sir.
How about a limerick? Something like, there once was a Dalek from Scarrow whose voice sounded something like Charo.
No!
His companion in this story is Christine, a peasant from medieval England. She's somewhere on the Jamie to Victoria spectrum of historical companions, as in she needs stuff explained to her like Jamie, but she's unlikely to stab someone like Victoria. She also has an interesting performance, which I think is just best listened to just so it doesn't catch you by surprise if you listen to the story proper.
Doctor, where are you? Ah, there you are. This is... what did you call it? The laboratory?
Very close, the laboratory. You're really getting quite good at speaking in a more modern English dialect. How are you doing on this fine day, Christine?
Quite well. Doctor, what are you doing? Oh, Doctor, are you all right?
As well as can be expected after someone takes a shot at you. He did try to shoot me, right?
Doctor, look! Irving is lying in the snow!
What?
Mr. Irving, are you all right? It cannot be! It cannot be!
Try to get a hold of yourself, young lady. It's just a box.
It is not just a box! You do not understand! The TARDIS! It is gone!
All right, everyone, gather closer. The doctor has a plan.
Doctor, look! Those creatures are coming toward us again!
I think she heard Tozer leave and became curious. She probably followed him to see what he was up to.
So if Liak went this way, we see that she seems to be following Tozer to where the murder of Mr. Hopcrop took place.
It looks that way, doesn't it?
That does not help her case any, Doctor. Bitch Champs will never believe her innocence based on this.
I've read somewhere that the actor Rachel Summers was deaf, but I don't know if that's true. If it is, that's the DWAD breaking down a barrier long before Big Finish the TV show. Regardless, the performance soon just becomes a quirk of the character and isn't that important. Plus, I really like how she's written, not stupid, just thrown into the deep end and doing her best to swim. Oh, side note, the DWAD are a little cagey about when these stories take place in continuity. There's some who think they're alternate incarnations to the TV ones, splitting off after Troughton, but most feel they take place at some point after the TV show. The intro they use is a slightly warped version of the McGann TV one. I always had a soft spot for that one. As a rule, I don't like it when Who themes sound like traditional music, but it was a new take back in 1996, so I give it a pass. And if anything, the version used here, being kinda warped, makes it sound more like a Doctor Who theme. Anyway, the Doctor and Christine end up in the Canadian Arctic, just in time to meet the crews of the Terra and the Erebus, and get embroiled in an 8-part adventure. Yes, 8 whole parts. Though they're not all 25 minutes long, part 8 is closer to 15. And this isn't just Doctor Who does the Franklin expedition, this is Doctor Who does the Terror in particular. Both stories feature the crews under attack from a giant polar bear looking thing that's from Inuit folklore, one called the Toonback, the other called the Tupilak. Both stories feature an Inuit outcast woman getting close to the crews. In both she has a connection to the beast and is the daughter of a dead shaman, and in both she ends up with Crozier. Crozier in the book ended up with Lady Silence. Crozier is the only survivor from the crews in both stories. Crozier is basically the only important crew member in both who's not racist to the Inuit, and Crozier gets a lone farewell to the Terror in both. Both stories feature the crews splitting into good and evil teams, the good ones staying with Crozier and the bad ones turning to cannibalism. The second in command of the bad team in both stories is Tozer, the lead Marine. Both have Terror in the title.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
There are so many parallels between it and this that I assume the writer, Richard Franklin, not that one though that would be hilarious, read the book and did an unofficial remake. Like the early Tom Baker era remade King Kong, The Crawling Hand, and Frankenstein. But no, this came out years before The Terror was published. And I'm not suggesting that Dan Simmons listened to this kind of obscure Doctor Who story and ripped it off for his book. Though again, that would be hilarious. All the parallels in the stories can easily be explained by obvious and logical creative decisions when dealing with adapting the Franklin expedition into a story. The monster, the Toonback and the Tupilak, are both based on the same Inuit helper spirit, the Tupilak. There's a lone Inuit woman because the story already has a lot of men in it. It'd be hard to fit many Inuit characters in, so they choose a lone woman. A lone woman related to a shaman so she can explain stuff and give some much needed exposition. Not a shaman herself, because then she could maybe save the crew. Crozier's the only survivor who integrated into the Inuit because that's one of the OG Franklin expedition theories, dating back to the early 1850s. Crozier is basically the only crew to be nice to the Inuit because racism was a norm, and real-life Crozier was unusually non-racist to the Inuit. He had Inuit friends and spoke the language. Crozier ending up with the Inuit woman is just the obvious romantic ending, and Crozier's lone farewell to the Terror is basic drama. The guy had captained her for the better part of a decade. And finally, the crew split up at some point and some turned cannibal. That's historical fact. It makes sense to make it part of the drama, and Tozer as the leading Marine is the perfect choice for the bad team's muscle. This is convergent evolution in writing, writ very large. It's just really noticeable if you're a loon like me. Possibly the single most bizarre similarity though is that the guy who plays Fitzjames in Terror of the Arctic sounds a lot like Tobias Menzies who played him in The Terror.
Liak, you were spying on us?
No, I did not know.
Just as I thought, you savage. You're responsible for my men's deaths. Now it's your turn to die.
Soon, the whole city was dotted with these lone columns of personal smoke, and the whole view smelled of roast duck.
Then we have no choice but to press on.
We can't just abandon them.
We have no choice. We have to think of the majority. If we go traipsing around the Arctic at random with those creatures hunting us, not only will we never find the missing crew, but we may get eaten.
I just loaded a rocket and aimed when I was pierced. Single musket ball. Size of a cherry.
But that's just a bit weird. Anyway, we have a few minutes, so I'm going to talk about the story itself, the good and bad. This is an incredibly accurate take on how classic Who Franklin expedition story probably would have gone, for better and worse. Even the music and the sound effects have been lifted directly from classic Who. Hell, there's a section near the end in a spaceship and the Doctor uses a cricket ball to turn off gravity, and you can just see it being done with terrible special effects.
It's a cricket ball, used in an Earth sport.
What can you possibly do to me with some toy?
Nothing. It's not for you. It's for that lever behind you. Here goes.
What is she laughing about?
That wasn't the hyperdrive control.
What is happening?
It was the gravity control. We're now weightless.
I will kill you, Doctor!
Her people come from a high-gravity world. Quick, while she's disoriented, get out of here!
The writer has a weird obsession with including crewmen's names as often as possible. There were so many times when someone could have just given an order to someone or addressed a small group without naming everyone involved, but they never take it. Early on, it was very helpful to establish the crew because there are a load of them. Later on, it got distracting, and by the end, you just wanted to stop.
I'm Lieutenant John Irving, and these are my men, Sergeant Solomon Tozer, Private Wilkes, and Seaman Strong.
Le Vicomte, are all the men and items accounted for?
Captain, we should be ready to meet the crew of the Terror as soon as Seaman Seeley returns from the ship.
What the blazes is he doing on the ship? We have disembarked from her, Mr. Le Vicomte.
Here comes our surgeon. What do you have to report, Petty? Any injuries? 9 officers and 15 men. Read the message back to me if you would, Mr. Helpman.
How's it coming? Let me see.
Help yourself.
This just shows how undisciplined the crew has become since Crozier took over. Just look at how that boy is carrying those supplies. Chambers! What in the Lord's name do you think you're doing?
Sorry, sir. It slipped out of my hand.
Honestly, I think the writer did a lot of research in the Franklin expedition and just really wanted it to show. And it does. As Franklin works of fiction go, this is easily one of the more historically accurate ones. Historically accurate for when they wrote it, I mean. We've since discovered that the ships weren't utterly destroyed. And except for the interdimensional polar bears and the space-time wildness going on, but you can't have everything. There are odd mistakes, though. For instance, Beachy Island has been renamed Beachley Island.
23 degrees west, having wintered in 1846-47 at Beachley Island.
And apparently Crozier's from the south of Ireland.
Your guilt or innocence will have to wait, I'm afraid. Right now, I must think of the lives and safety of my crew. Therefore, I must commandeer your ship for their sakes.
No, I can't let you. You'll do untold damage to the time stream.
Though to be fair, the whole production is a collection of accents being butchered by random American nerds, and they all did fine. Even Tozer, who's always recorded a couple of decibels louder than anyone else, and sounds kind of Australian.
Thank you. Now where's Mr. Hammond? Oh my. Oh, Mr. Tozer, I do wish you'd stop doing that.
Doctor!
Tozer, why did you do that?
They killed Hammond.
How? They were locked in Irving's cabin!
Oh, yeah.
One area where this goes above and beyond most Franklin stories is that it goes out of its way to try and explain some of the still inexplicable stuff, such as the random places bodies were found. The space-time wildness is making people miss time and travel great distances without realizing it. Near the end of Part 4, the story even brings up one of the lingering mysteries about the expedition that rarely makes it into fiction. Why did they go south when Fury Beach was closer?
Crozier, I still say that we should head to Baffin Bay, where we could meet up with a whaling fleet this summer.
That is a slim chance at best. If we go to Bax River, we can take the river to Hudson's Bay Company Outpost. What do you think, Doctor?
Bax River seems the wisest choice to me.
Sure, there's a few theories, and that was just kind of hand-wavy, but I do appreciate the effort. The villainous Tupilak are a great creation, a species of cyborg polar bears who spread their ravenous hunger via nanomachines in their blood. One of their ships got stuck half in reality and half in a warp, and they spent the last few thousand years slowly becoming part of our reality, becoming Inuit folklore when they first saw their ghostly shades centuries before. The queen of the Tupilak, or the Tuplex as they call themselves, is one of those beautifully unsubtle performances that classic Who did every so often, and New Who almost never does, all roaring and scene-chewing.
How is this possible? The risk of destroying this insignificant planet is meaningless as long as we can be free! Here at last, and I'm ready to feed. Are you prepared to die, Doctor?
I don't think I've ever heard a performer in an audio drama literally try to eat the microphone before, but I'm glad I did. She sounds like a Githyanki by way of Neanderthal.
What news do you bring me, Kazuk?
Great matriarchs, I was able to drain one of them, but then the humans were transported away.
What?
Towards the end of the story, it really tries to have stuff to say about bigotry and colonialism, and it's much less successful at that.
They're not evil, Pooja. Well, not most of them. They can be stupid and selfish, careless and ignorant, but that surely is true of all peoples who inhabit this planet. There are good and bad people no matter your race or species, for that matter. Your own people treated you as an outcast, did they not? Sometimes people can be cruel. Sometimes people make mistakes.
Its heart's in the right place, but the human villain is an Inuit who lost her father to tuberculosis brought by a British ship, and was ostracized from her community because of that. She then fell in love with a British sailor who abandoned her. And so she teamed up with the clearly evil cyborg interdimensional polar bears that she thinks are evil spirits, so they can eat hundreds of people, her own included.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Anyway, you can find this on YouTube, and I suggest you give it a listen if you're into Who and the Franklin Expedition. It's a fascinating window into what might have been, if things had gone differently and Classic Who had done a story on it. As a demo of the DWAD, it is fantastic. Flynn is a great doctor, and Christina is a unique companion.
And most of our crew are loyal to Crozier. Irish or English, he is the best man for the job.
Well spoken, Lieutenant.
Doctor, what is wrong?
There's some sort of disruption in the space-time continuum.
What?
Only I can feel it. As a Time Lord.
Are you alright, Doctor?
Yes, I feel much better.
You were babbling nonsense there for a moment. Something about being a lord of time and disrupting things. Is it some sort of club you belong to? These Time Lords?
I suppose you could say that.
Disruptive fellows, are they? Cause a lot of ruckus at parties?
Well, they burnt £1 million once.
Drummond and Cotty travelled to Scotland and burned £1 million in 50-pound bill increments. It took about an hour, and they made a movie about it.